The sun stretched its golden fingers across the Montana sky as Jessica Valmont's body hit the dusty trail with a painful thud. Her wedding dress, once pristine white, was now caked with dirt and torn at the hem. The stagecoach that had ejected her continued to rumble away, the sound of cruel laughter fading with the distance. She had been betrayed by the very man who had arranged her marriage, a cruel joke that had ended with her abandoned in the wilderness. Jessica pushed herself to her knees, wincing at the pain shooting through her side. Her honey-blonde hair had come loose from its careful arrangement, falling in tangled waves around her tear-stained face. The dawn light revealed nothing but endless prairie and the distant silhouette of mountains. No towns, no homes, nothing but wilderness stretching in every direction. "Help!" she called out, her voice hoarse and barely audible even to her own ears. The effort sent her into a fit of coughing. She hadn't had water since the previous evening, when the stagecoach had stopped briefly at an outpost. The sound of hoofbeats made her freeze. A rider was approaching, his silhouette growing larger against the brightening sky. Jessica's heart hammered in her chest. In 1875, the Montana Territory was still wild, dangerous, and unpredictable. The approaching stranger could be her salvation or her doom. The rider slowed his horse as he approached, and Jessica could finally see him clearly. Tall and broad-shouldered, with a weathered face that spoke of years under the harsh western sun. His eyes, a startling shade of blue, assessed her with concern beneath the brim of his worn Stetson. "Madam," he called, dismounting in one fluid motion. "Are you hurt?" Jessica tried to stand but faltered, her legs weak and her ankle throbbing. The man was at her side instantly, strong hands gently steadying her. I was on the stagecoach," she managed, her voice breaking. "They threw me out, said it was a joke. The marriage arrangement was false." The stranger's expression hardened as he took in her wedding dress, the small traveling case that had been tossed out alongside her, and the fresh bruises forming on her arms. Without hesitation, he scooped her up, cradling her against his chest as if she weighed nothing. "I will carry you now," he said, his voice deep and reassuring. "Name's Liam Morgan, got a ranch about 3 miles east of here." "Jessica Valmont," she replied, too exhausted and grateful to protest being carried. "I was supposed to marry a man named Harold Webster in Helena." Liam's jaw tightened. "Webster, you say, known for his mining interests?" Jessica nodded weakly. "Man's got a reputation," Liam said grimly, "and not a good one." He settled her carefully on his horse before mounting behind her. Jessica leaned back against his solid chest, finding unexpected comfort in the arms of this stranger. His warmth surrounded her, a stark contrast to the cool morning air. "My ranch isn't much," Liam said as they began to ride, "but you'll be safe there until we figure out what to do next." Jessica closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't come along." Liam's arms tightened slightly around her as he guided the horse eastward. "Sometimes fate has strange ways, Miss Valmont, strange ways indeed." The Morgan Ranch came into view after an hour's ride, a modest but well-maintained homestead with a 2-story cabin, a barn, and several corrals where horses grazed peacefully. Smoke curled from the chimney, indicating someone was already awake inside. As they approached, the front door swung open, and an older woman with silver-streaked hair emerged, wiping her hands on her apron. "Liam Morgan. I was wondering where you'd gone off to before dawn," she called, her scolding tone shifting to concern as she noticed Jessica. "Lord Almighty, what's happened here? Maggie," Liam called to the woman, "got a lady in need of help. Found her tossed from the northbound stagecoach." Maggie hurried forward as Liam dismounted and gently lifted Jessica down. My heavens, child, in a wedding dress, no less. Bring her inside, Liam. Quickly now. The interior of the cabin was warm and inviting, with simple but sturdy furniture and a large stone fireplace. Liam carried Jessica to a cushioned chair near the fire and set her down carefully. Maggie's been our housekeeper since I was knee-high to a grasshopper, Liam explained. Best woman in Montana territory, though don't tell her I said so. Her head's big enough already. Maggie snorted as she bustled around the kitchen. That boy's been full of nonsense since the day he was born, she told Jessica with a fond smile. Now, let's get you some tea and something to eat. You look half-starved, poor thing. Jessica accepted the steaming mug Maggie pressed into her hands. Thank you, both of you. I don't know what I would have done. No need for thanks, Liam said, removing his hat and hanging it on a peg by the door. His dark hair was slightly damp with sweat, curling at the nape of his neck. Now, if you're feeling up to it, maybe you could tell us a bit more about how you ended up on that stagecoach. Jessica took a deep breath, finding comfort in the simple kindness of these strangers. I was an orphan, she began, raised in St. Louis at the Pembroke School for Girls. When I turned 22 last month, the headmistress told me a successful businessman from Montana had arranged to marry me through a mail-order bride service. Liam's expression darkened. Webster, Jessica nodded. He sent money for my passage and a letter saying he was looking forward to meeting me. The stagecoach was supposed to take me all the way to Helena, but last night. She swallowed hard. A man got on at the last station. He said he was Harold's friend. Then this morning, he and the driver started laughing, saying Harold would never marry a penniless orphan, that it was all a cruel joke to teach some business rival a lesson. Maggie gasped. Those despicable men. They took most of my things, Jessica continued, threw me out with just this small case and left me there. Said I should be grateful they didn't do worse. Liam paced the room, his fists clenched. Webster's known for his underhanded dealings, uses people like pawns, but this. He shook his head. This is low even for him. What will you do now, dear? Maggie asked gently. Jessica stared into her tea, the reality of her situation crashing down on her. I don't know. I have no money, no family, nowhere to go. You'll stay here, Liam said firmly. At least until you're recovered and we can figure something out. I couldn't impose, Jessica began. It's no imposition, Liam interrupted. We've got plenty of room and Maggie's been complaining about needing another woman around the place. Maggie nodded vigorously. That I have. This place could use a feminine touch, and I'm getting too old to manage everything myself. Jessica looked between them, overwhelmed by their kindness. I don't know how to thank you. No need, Liam said, his blue eyes meeting hers with surprising gentleness. Just rest now. You're safe here. For the first time since leaving St. Louis, Jessica felt the tension in her shoulders ease. Whatever tomorrow might bring, tonight she had found shelter and perhaps even friends. The next morning, Jessica woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar curtains. She was in a small but comfortable bedroom, dressed in a borrowed nightgown. It took her a moment to remember where she was and how she had gotten there. A soft knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Miss Valmont, Maggie called. Are you awake, dear? Yes, please come in, Jessica answered, sitting up in bed. Maggie entered carrying a tray with breakfast and a steaming cup of coffee. Thought you might be hungry, and I've brought some clothes that might fit you. They belonged to Liam's sister, Sarah, before she moved east to get married. Thank you, Jessica said, accepting the tray gratefully. Is Mr. Morgan around? I'd like to thank him again. He's out checking the fences, Maggie replied, laying out a simple but well-made blue dress on the bed. Spring brings all sorts of repair work on a ranch. He'll be back for lunch, though. Jessica nodded, taking a sip of the rich coffee. Maggie, I want to earn my keep while I'm here. I can cook, clean, so anything you need. Maggie smiled, the corners of her eyes crinkling. Well, I won't turn down the help, that's for certain. This place runs me ragged some days. But first, let's get you properly settled and rested. After breakfast, Jessica changed into the borrowed dress, which fit reasonably well despite being slightly loose in the waist. She found Maggie in the kitchen, kneading dough for bread. "What can I do to help?" Jessica asked. Maggie looked up, flour dusting her forearms. "Well, if you're feeling up to it, the vegetable garden out back needs weeding something fierce. Been neglecting it with all the spring work." Jessica spent the morning in the garden, finding unexpected peace in the simple, repetitive task of weeding. The sun warmed her back, and the earthy smell of the soil was comforting. By midday, her hands were dirty, but the garden rows were neat and tidy. She was washing up at the pump when the sound of hoofbeats announced Liam's return. He dismounted smoothly, leading his horse toward the barn. When he spotted Jessica, he changed direction and walked toward her. "Miss Valmont," he greeted, removing his hat. "You're looking better today." Jessica smiled, suddenly aware of her dirt-smudged hands and disheveled hair. "I feel better, Mr. Morgan, and please call me Jessica." "Jessica," he repeated, his voice warming the name. "Then I'm Liam. Mr. Morgan was my father." "Liam," she agreed. "I've been helping Maggie with the garden. I hope that's all right." "More than all right," he said, his blue eyes crinkling at the corners. "Maggie's been after me to tend that garden for weeks, but between the cattle, the horses, and the fences, I never seem to find the time." "Do you manage this ranch all alone?" Jessica asked as they walked toward the house. Liam nodded. "My father passed 5 years ago. Since then, it's just been me, with Maggie keeping the house. I hire extra hands during roundup and branding, but day to day, it's just us." Jessica glanced around at the well-maintained buildings and healthy livestock. "You've done an impressive job." A slight flush colored Liam's tan cheeks. "Thank you. It's not the biggest spread in Montana, but it's home." As they neared the house, Jessica noticed a rider approaching from the east, dust rising behind the galloping horse. Liam tensed beside her. "That's Frank Tolliver, rides for the Circle W Ranch." "Circle W?" Jessica asked. "Webster's spread," Liam explained, his expression grim. "Biggest ranch in the county. Webster himself stays in Helena most of the time, running his mining interests, but his foreman Tolliver does his dirty work." Jessica felt her heart race. "Do you think they know I'm here?" "Let's find out," Liam said, stepping slightly in front of her as Tolliver reined in his horse. The newcomer was a wiry man with a sharp face and cold eyes. He tipped his hat insolently. "Morgan," he greeted, his gaze sliding to Jessica. "And you must be Miss Valmont. What do you want, Tolliver?" Liam demanded. "Just delivering a message," Tolliver said smoothly. "Mr. Webster sends his apologies for the misunderstanding, says his instructions were misinterpreted by overzealous employees." "Misunderstanding," Jessica repeated incredulously. "I was thrown from a moving stagecoach." Tolliver shrugged. "Mr. Webster is prepared to make amends. He's still interested in making you his wife, Miss Valmont. Sent me to escort you to Helena." Jessica felt Liam stiffen beside her. "She's not going anywhere with you, Tolliver," he said flatly. "That's for the lady to decide, isn't it?" Tolliver's hand rested casually near his holstered pistol. "Mr. Webster is a powerful man, Miss Valmont, not someone you want as an enemy. He can provide for you in ways Morgan here never could." Jessica stepped forward, anger replacing her fear. "You can tell Mr. Webster that I have no interest in his proposal. What happened was not a misunderstanding, it was cruel and deliberate." Tolliver's expression hardened. "I'd reconsider if I were you. Morgan's ranch is nice enough, but Webster owns half the territory, including the bank that holds Morgan's mortgage. Liam's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. I've made my decision, Jessica said firmly. Please leave. Tolliver studied her for a long moment before nodding slowly. As you wish, Miss Valmont. But Mr. Webster isn't a man who takes rejection well. Remember that. He turned his horse and rode away, dust billowing in his wake. Jessica turned to Liam, concern etching her features. Is it true? About your mortgage, Liam sighed, running a hand through his hair. Webster's been trying to buy me out for years. Wants to expand the Circle W all the way to the river. When I wouldn't sell, he bought my loan from the bank in Billings. I'm so sorry, Jessica said. I don't want to bring trouble to your door. Liam's expression softened as he looked at her. You didn't bring the trouble, Jessica. Webster did, and I've dealt with his kind before. What will happen now? She asked. Webster will try something else, Liam said grimly. He always does, but we'll be ready. He offered her a reassuring smile. For now, let's go see what Maggie's cooked up for lunch. No sense worrying on an empty stomach. As they walked toward the house, Jessica found herself studying Liam's profile. There was something deeply reassuring about his steady presence, something that made her feel safer than she had in years. Despite the circumstances, she was beginning to think that being thrown from that stagecoach might have been the best thing that ever happened to her. The next 2 weeks passed in a rhythm of work and quiet evenings. Jessica quickly made herself useful around the ranch, helping Maggie with the household tasks, and even learning to assist Liam with some of the lighter ranch work. She discovered she had a talent for working with the horses, their gentle natures responding well to her calm demeanor. Liam found himself watching her more often than he cared to admit. There was something about the way she moved, the way she laughed at Maggie's stories, the determined set of her jaw when she tackled a difficult task. He'd never met a woman like her, someone who had faced such cruelty, yet remained kind, who worked without complaint, despite being raised for a gentler life. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the mountains gold and purple, Liam finally asked the question that had been on his mind. Why did you agree to marry Webster in the first place? A woman like you could have found a husband anywhere. Jessica was quiet for so long that he thought she might not answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft. When you're an orphan, Mr. Morgan, Liam's security becomes everything. The school where I grew up was not a kind place. When girls turned 18, they were expected to find positions as governesses or companions or to marry. I stayed on as a teacher, but she twisted her hands in her lap. The headmistress made it clear I couldn't stay forever. When Webster's offer came, it seemed like providence. A home of my own, financial security, respect in the community. You deserved all those things, Liam said quietly. Jessica smiled, a touch of sadness in her eyes. Perhaps, but I've learned that security without affection is a poor bargain. Liam wanted to tell her that she could find both here with him, but the words caught in his throat. Instead, he said, "You've got a home here as long as you need it." "Thank you," she replied, her eyes meeting his in the fading light. "That means more than you know." The moment was interrupted by the sound of approaching riders. Liam stood, instantly alert. "Stay here," he instructed, going inside for his rifle. 3 men rode into the yard, their faces shadowed beneath their hats. Jessica recognized Tolliver at the lead. "Evening, Morgan," Tolliver called, a smirk playing at his lips. "Just passing through." Liam stepped back onto the porch, rifle in hand but pointed at the ground. "My land isn't a thoroughfare, Tolliver." "No, but the creek that runs through it is mighty convenient for watering cattle," Tolliver replied. "Got 500 head moving north tomorrow. Thought I'd scout the crossing." "The crossing is on the north end, and you know it," Liam said evenly. "This is just harassment." Tolliver shrugged. "Call it what you like. Webster sent a message. He's calling in your loan next month. Full amount due or foreclosure proceedings begin." Jessica gasped softly beside Liam. He hadn't heard her approach. "That's not legal," Liam growled. "I've got 6 months before the next payment is due." "Terms changed," Tolliver said with a malicious grin. "Read the fine print, Morgan. Webster can call it due any time with 30 days' notice. Consider yourself notified." His gaze shifted to Jessica. "Miss Valmont, offer's still open. Webster says you'd be welcome in Helena any time." "Might be a good idea, considering your current lodgings won't be around much longer." Jessica stepped forward, anger flushing her cheeks. "Mr. Tolliver, you can tell Harold Webster that I would rather live in a cave than accept anything from him." Tolliver's expression darkened. "Suit yourself, lady, but Morgan here is finished." He turned his horse. 30 days, Morgan. Hope you've got deep pockets." The men rode away, leaving a heavy silence in their wake. "Can he really do that?" Jessica asked. "Call in the loan like that," Liam sighed, lowering the rifle. "If Webster did buy the loan, then yes. These big cattle barons have all sorts of clauses written into their contracts. I never thought it would matter since I've never missed a payment." "How much do you owe?" Jessica asked. $2,000, Liam replied grimly. "Nearly everything I had went into expanding the herd last fall. Won't see that money back until the cattle drive in late summer." Jessica's mind raced. "Could you sell some cattle early, or take out another loan from a different bank?" "No bank will cross Webster," Liam said, shaking his head. "And selling cattle now, before they've fattened on spring grass, would mean taking a huge loss." He managed a tight smile. "Don't worry about it tonight. I'll figure something out." But as Jessica lay in bed that night, she couldn't stop thinking about the situation. Liam had saved her, given her a home when she had nothing. Now he was about to lose everything because of Webster's vendetta, a vendetta that seemed at least partly directed at her. She had to do something. But what could one penniless former schoolteacher do against one of the most powerful men in Montana territory? The answer came to her just before dawn. It was risky, perhaps even foolish, but it was the only plan she had. When Liam came down for breakfast the next morning, Jessica was already dressed for travel, a borrowed shawl wrapped around her shoulders. "What's this?" he asked, frowning at her attire. "I need to go to town," she said. "There's something I need to do." "If you need supplies, I was planning to go in a few days." "No," Jessica interrupted gently. "I need to go today, and I need to go alone." Liam's frown deepened. "This isn't about what Tolliver said, is it?" "Because if you're thinking of accepting Webster's offer to help me, it's nothing like that," Jessica assured him quickly. "I would never. No, this is something else, something personal. Please, Liam, trust me." He studied her for a long moment before nodding reluctantly. "Take Penny," he said, referring to his gentlest mare. "She's steady on the trail. Town's about 2 hours' ride southwest. Just follow the main road." "Thank you," Jessica said, relief evident in her voice. "I'll be back by nightfall, I promise." The ride to town was uneventful, giving Jessica plenty of time to refine her plan. By the time the small settlement of Riverdale came into view, with its dusty main street lined with wooden buildings, she felt as ready as she'd ever be. She tied Penny outside the general store and smoothed her borrowed dress before stepping inside. The store was busy with midday shoppers, most of whom gave her curious glances. The proprietor, a balding man with spectacles perched on his nose, greeted her from behind the counter. "Good day, miss. Can I help you find something?" "Actually," Jessica said, keeping her voice steady, "I was wondering if you could direct me to the telegraph office. And perhaps the newspaper office as well." The man blinked in surprise. "Telegraph is next door to the right." Riverdale Register is at the end of the street, red door. You're staying at the Morgan place, aren't you? Maggie mentioned a visitor. Jessica nodded, not surprised that news traveled fast in such a small community. Yes, Mr. Morgan has been kind enough to offer me shelter after I encountered some difficulties. The man's expression softened. Liam Morgan's a good man. His father before him too, salt of the earth, those Morgans. Yes, they are, Jessica agreed. Thank you for your help. At the telegraph office, she spent nearly all the money she had managed to save from her teaching days on a series of messages to St. Louis. Then she made her way to the newspaper office. The Riverdale Register operated out of a small building that smelled of ink and paper. A young man with ink-stained fingers looked up from a printing press as she entered. "Help you, madam?" "I hope so," Jessica said. "I need to place an advertisement and a news story if possible." The young man raised his eyebrows. "Mr. Finch handles that sort of thing. He's in back." Mr. Finch turned out to be an older gentleman with a shock of white hair and keen eyes that assessed Jessica sharply as she explained what she wanted. "Interesting," he said when she finished. "Very interesting indeed. And you're sure about these facts, Miss Valmont?" "Absolutely certain," Jessica replied firmly. "Well then," Finch said, a slow smile spreading across his face, "I believe the Riverdale Register might just have its most interesting edition in months. When would you like this to run?" "As soon as possible," Jessica said. "Tomorrow, if you can manage it." Finch nodded. "For a story like this, I'll make sure of it." Jessica returned to the ranch just as the sun was beginning to set, feeling both exhausted and exhilarated. Liam was waiting on the porch, his expression a mixture of relief and curiosity. "Everything all right?" he asked as he helped her down from the saddle. "Yes," Jessica said, offering him a small smile. "At least I hope it will be." "Care to tell me what that was all about?" Jessica hesitated. "Not just yet. I need to wait for some responses first, but soon, I promise." Liam looked like he wanted to press further but nodded instead. "All right. I trust you." Those 3 simple words warmed Jessica more than she could express. In her entire life, very few people had ever trusted her judgment or her capabilities. That Liam did, despite knowing her for such a short time, meant more than he could know. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything." 3 days later, Jessica's plan began to unfold. It started with the arrival of the Riverdale Register, which Liam brought back from town along with supplies. His expression was thunderous as he dropped the newspaper on the kitchen table. "Did you know about this?" he demanded. Jessica glanced at the front page and had to suppress a smile. The headline read, "Prominent Businessman's Fraudulent Schemes Exposed," with a subheading Harold Webster's pattern of deception includes mail-order bride scam and illegal land grabs. "I may have had something to do with it," she admitted. Liam stared at her in disbelief. "You went to the newspaper. Jessica, Webster will be furious. This puts you in even more danger." "Read the article," Jessica urged. "All of it." Liam sat down heavily and began to read. The article detailed Webster's history of underhanded dealings, including using mail-order bride services to lure unsuspecting women west under false pretenses, then abandoning them or worse. Jessica's case was presented as the latest in a pattern. The article also exposed Webster's practice of manipulating property loans to force smallholders to sell at a fraction of their land's worth. Most damaging of all, the article included quotes from several of Webster's former business associates, detailing his fraudulent mining claims and tax evasion. "How did you get all this information?" Liam asked, looking up from the paper in amazement. "Some of it I learned at the school," Jessica explained. The headmistress kept records of all correspondence regarding her former pupils. When I sent a telegraph asking about other girls who might have been sent to Webster, she was quite forthcoming. Especially when I mentioned the possibility of scandal affecting the school's reputation. And the business associates, Jessica smiled. Mr. Finch at the newspaper had been collecting rumors about Webster for years, but never had enough concrete evidence to print anything. When I gave him my story and the headmistress's information, he reached out to his own contacts. Apparently, many people have been waiting for a chance to speak out against Webster. Liam shook his head slowly. This is incredible. But Jessica, it might not be enough to stop him from calling in my loan. If anything, it might make him more determined to ruin me out of spite. That's why I did more than just go to the newspaper, Jessica said, her eyes gleaming with determination. I also wrote to the Territorial Banking Commissioner about Webster's predatory lending practices, and I contacted a lawyer in Helena who specializes in land disputes. Liam stared at her, speechless. The lawyer believes we have grounds to challenge Webster's right to call in your loan early, especially given the evidence of his pattern of behavior, Jessica continued. At the very least, it will buy us time for public opinion to turn against him, time for the banking commissioner to investigate. Jessica Valmont, Liam finally said, a slow smile spreading across his face. You are the most remarkable woman I have ever met. Jessica blushed, ducking her head. I just couldn't stand by and watch him take your home, not when you've done so much for me. Liam reached across the table and took her hand in his. It's more than that, and we both know it. His blue eyes held hers, serious and intent. In just a few weeks, you've become important to me, very important. Jessica's heart raced as she met his gaze. You've become important to me too, Liam. Before either could say more, they were interrupted by the sound of horses approaching many horses. Liam rose quickly, moving to the window. Riders coming, he said grimly. Looks like Tolliver and at least 6 men with him. Jessica stood, fear and determination warring within her. They must have seen the newspaper. Stay inside, Liam instructed, grabbing his rifle. Maggie, take Jessica to the back room. I will not hide, Jessica said firmly. This concerns me as much as you. Liam looked like he wanted to argue but nodded sharply. Stay behind me then. They stepped onto the porch just as Tolliver and his men reined in their horses in the yard. Tolliver's face was contorted with fury, a copy of the newspaper clutched in his fist. You're going to regret this, Morgan, he spat. Both of you. This is private property, Tolliver, Liam said evenly, rifle held ready but not aimed. You're not welcome here. Webster wants the woman, Tolliver said, ignoring Liam's words. Said to bring her to Helena, willing or not. That would be kidnapping, Liam replied. Last I checked, that's still illegal in Montana territory. Tolliver sneered. Who's going to stop us, you, against 7 men? 8, actually, came a new voice. A tall man in a marshal's uniform rode into the yard, accompanied by another rider. I believe that evens the odds somewhat, doesn't it, Tolliver? Tolliver's face paled. Marshal Davis, this doesn't concern you. A threat of kidnapping on my watch most certainly does concern me, the marshal replied coolly. As does this fascinating article I read this morning. He held up a copy of the Riverdale Register. Mr. Webster seems to have been quite busy. The territorial governor is very interested in speaking with him. Webster didn't do nothing that ain't common practice, Tolliver protested, but with less conviction. Common or not, fraud is still fraud, the marshal said. Now, I suggest you and your men turn around and head back to the Circle W. Tell Webster he's expected in the governor's office by week's end. If he doesn't appear voluntarily, I'll come find him myself. Tolliver glared at Liam and Jessica. This ain't over. I believe it is, the marshal countered. unless you'd like to add resisting a federal officer to the charges Webster is likely facing. After a tense moment, Tolliver jerked his head at his men. "Let's go." With venomous glances at Liam and Jessica, they rode away. The marshal dismounted, approaching the porch with a tired smile. "Liam Morgan, been a while." "Too long, Ben," Liam agreed, lowering his rifle and extending his hand. "Thanks for showing up when you did." "Good timing on my part," the marshal replied, shaking Liam's hand firmly. "I was already on my way to talk to you about this article when I spotted Tolliver and his boys heading this way. Figured they weren't paying a social call." He turned to Jessica. "You must be Miss Valmont. I'm Marshal Benjamin Davis." "Thank you for your intervention, Marshal," Jessica said sincerely. "Just doing my job, madam. Though I must say, you've stirred up quite a hornet's nest with this article. The governor's been looking for a reason to investigate Webster for years. His mining operations have been skirting the law, but he's been too well connected to touch. Until now." "What happens next?" Liam asked. "Investigation, most likely," the marshal replied. "Both into Webster's business dealings and his treatment of women like Miss Valmont. In the meantime, I've been authorized to inform you that any attempt by Webster to foreclose on your property is suspended pending the investigation." Jessica felt a wave of relief wash over her. "So Liam's ranch is safe. For now, at least," the marshal confirmed. "And if half of what's in this article is true, Webster will be too busy defending himself to bother either of you for quite some time." After the marshal departed, promising to return with any news, Liam turned to Jessica with wonder in his eyes. "I still can't believe you did all this," he said softly. "You saved my ranch." "You saved me first," Jessica replied simply. "I just returned the favor." Liam stepped closer, his eyes never leaving hers. "Is that all it was, returning a favor?" Jessica's heart raced as she shook her head. "No. It was much more than that." "Jessica," Liam said, his voice dropping to a near whisper, "I know we haven't known each other long, but I've never felt this way about anyone before. When I found you on that road, something changed for me. It was like finding a piece of myself I didn't know was missing." Jessica felt tears spring to her eyes. "I feel the same way. I came west looking for security, but I found something far more precious." Liam reached out, gently brushing a tear from her cheek. "I can't offer you wealth or a fancy house in town, but I can promise you a home, hard work, and a heart that will cherish you always." "That's all I've ever truly wanted," Jessica whispered. When Liam's lips met hers, gentle and questioning at first, then with growing confidence, Jessica felt as though her journey had finally ended. She had traveled thousands of miles, endured betrayal and hardship, only to be thrown from a stagecoach at dawn into the arms of a cowboy who promised to carry her. And carry her, he had not just physically, but through fear and uncertainty, into a future brighter than any she could have imagined. 6 months later, on a crisp autumn day with the mountains blazing with golden aspen trees, Jessica Valmont became Jessica Morgan in a simple ceremony on the porch of their ranch. Marshal Davis stood as Liam's best man, and Maggie, beaming with pride, gave the bride away. Webster had indeed been too occupied with legal troubles to cause them any further problems. The investigation had revealed even more extensive fraud than initially reported, leading to multiple charges and the dissolution of much of his business empire. As Liam and Jessica shared their first dance as husband and wife in the barn decorated with wildflowers and lanterns, surrounded by neighbors and new friends, Jessica couldn't help but marvel at the twists of fate that had brought her here. "What are you thinking about, Mrs. Morgan?" Liam asked, his blue eyes warm as he held her close. Jessica smiled up at the man who had literally and figuratively carried her through the darkest moment of her life. I was just thinking that sometimes the worst moments lead us to the best ones. If I hadn't been thrown from that stagecoach, then I wouldn't have found the love of my life," Liam finished, pressing a tender kiss to her forehead. "I'll always be grateful for that dawn, Jessica. Always." As they danced beneath the stars, Jessica knew with absolute certainty that she had found not just the security she had sought, but the love she had never dared to dream of, all because a cowboy had lifted her up when she had fallen and promised, with simple words and an open heart, "I'll carry you now."